The concept of leadership has been a focal point in various cultural, social, and political contexts throughout human history. Its relevance has only grown in our modern world, given its close connection to the human ability for conscious leadership. In his book, Leadership: A Very Short Introduction, Keith Grint provides multiple answers to many questions surrounding this topic. He sheds light on how the concept of leadership has evolved throughout history and explores the qualities that make an individual a leader, along with the conditions and specifications a leader acquires within their human group. Leadership: A Very Short Introduction by Keith Grint. Definitions of leadership vary from person to person and from perspective to perspective, based on a set of personal and objective data. The author emphasizes that it's not crucial to agree on a specific definition. What matters more is understanding the nature of these definitions. Some books focus their definitions on personal journeys or individual biographies, linking leadership to the person seen as the leader. Another perspective defines leadership as a process, the style adopted by leaders or the practices they engage in. Additionally, some view leadership as merely thinking about what those in power do. To avoid confusion amidst these definitions, we can categorize leadership differences into 4 areas: functional role, individual, outcome, and process. These can be summarized by asking 4 questions. Functional role: does the position make the leader a leader? Individual: does the personality of the leader make them a leader? Outcome: do the results produced by the leader make them a leader? Process: does the way the leader handles their affairs make them a leader? Bit to remember, despite differences in definitions, there are common points of agreement about the concept of leadership. Many people firmly believe that great leaders who ruled the world and led the masses all share specific characteristics like handsomeness, height, and dominance. However, this belief is not necessarily supported by any evidence, despite some studies attempting to validate it through initial assumptions. In this context, a person named Gladwell conducted research on top-performing companies and found that most CEOs of these companies were white males with slightly below average height, around 6 feet or 180 centimeters. However, this observation doesn't overlook an important note about leadership. Height, skin color, and attractiveness do not always equate to leadership. There have been leaders who left their mark on the world without being tall or having white skin. Yasser Arafat, Mahatma Gandhi, Kim Jong-il, King Hussein, Nikita Khrushchev, Dmitry Medvedev. Their heights was around 5 feet 3 inches or 1.6 meters. Also Queen Elizabeth II, Franco, Haile Selassie, Silvio Berlusconi, Emperor Hirohito, Nicolas Sarkozy, Stalin, T.I.E. Lawrence, Horatio Nelson. Their heights was below 5 feet 6 inches or 1.66 meters. Bit to remember, leaders are not always tall or of white complexion. No doubt, much of our knowledge about leadership is primarily based on written texts. Therefore, a fundamental lesson to learn about leadership from history is that history is generally written by the winners, the triumphant, and the powerful. History celebrates successful military leaders and political groups, with notable examples being the extensive information written about the victories of Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar. To understand this more clearly, we know almost nothing, and information is often scarce or entirely absent about a range of events carried out by other social movements. Consider the hundreds of revolutions initiated by slaves that shook slave societies in past eras. As mentioned before, this means that figures like Alexander or Julius Caesar wrote history according to their perspectives, or, at the very least, commissioned historians, writers, and intellectuals of their time to do so. Meanwhile, others left no written texts, events, or evidence that could chronicle their historical stages. This leads us to an important point we want to emphasize in this context: the necessity of being attentive to history and its narratives. Historical records are not neutral conveyors of true information, but are biased with the purpose of achieving specific goals. Bit to remember: leadership in history is written by the victors and the powerful. We previously learned that there are challenges surrounding the concept of leadership, which leads to an overlap with another concept within the field of management. So, how do we distinguish between leadership and management? The author, drawing from his extensive experience in writing about management, emphasizes an inherent difference partially rooted in the context of each concept. What does that mean? Simply put, when you're in a managerial position, you'll be asked to carry out the necessary steps to solve a problem that has already occurred. In contrast, when in a leadership position, you'll be asked to facilitate the crafting of an innovative response to emerging or persistent problems. Management and leadership are closely related concepts, yet they differ as two types of authority rooted in the distinction between certainty and uncertainty. Management deals with simple problems, while leadership tackles complex problems. Therefore, a manager, based on their experience, is required to solve simple problems through gradual actions because these problems have occurred before. In other words, there is a limited degree of uncertainty, making it associated with management. Bit to remember: leadership and management are rooted in the difference between certainty and uncertainty.